Welcome to the Medical Terminology Podcast on iTunes U at JCCC. This episode is Chapter 1, Part 3, More Suffixes. We've already talked about graphy and scopy, which are both procedures. We can go on and subdivide the remaining procedures by those that are diagnostic or those that are designed to treat. The first group we'll cover are the diagnostic procedures, and two of those we already know. Graphy, -graphy, which means the process of recording, and scopy, -scopy, which means the process of visually examining something. The third one is centesis, -centesis. Centesis means to withdraw fluid from. And many of us may be familiar with the term amniocentesis, which means the withdrawal of amniotic fluid from the uterus when a woman is pregnant. And the amniotic fluid, can be tested to make sure that the baby is healthy. The next two word parts or suffixes related to procedures basically are variations on stitching someone up. So we can pair them together. Stitching someone up. The first one is plasty, -plasty. Plasty means surgical repair. And we may have all heard of the term plastic surgery. That would be when a surgeon might do some cosmetic surgery to eliminate some blemishes someone has. Also, if someone is, severely injured and has some scarring or some type of damage as a result, that can be repaired with plastic surgery. So plasty, -plasty, would be any type of procedure that involves a surgical repair. Now the other term, graphy, -rrhaphy, is a more narrow term, and it means just to suture. Now, obviously, we'd need to suture if we're performing a plasty. There would be other things involved as well. So, graphy is very narrow, it simply means suture. Plasty would be surgical repair. And the final three to look at all relate to cutting, but they have subtle differences in meaning we have to pay attention to. The first one is otomy, -otomy. And otomy simply means to cut into, to make an incision. The second suffix is ectomy, -ectomy. Ectomy means to surgically remove. And many of us have probably had to have a tonsillectomy. That would be removal of the tonsils. Or an appendectomy, which is the removal of the appendix. Now, again, that's slightly different in meaning than otomy. Otomy is very narrow. We have to make an incision. Well, obviously, if you're going to do an appendectomy, you have to make an incision somewhere. But ectomy is a much larger term. It means the whole surgical removal of something. And finally, we have ostomy, -ostomy. And ostomy means to make a permanent opening into something. And that can be a little confusing because to do an ostomy, we often are removing something and we may be making an incision. But an ostomy is a very specific type of procedure. And the most common use of this term would be a procedure known as a colostomy, colostomy. And a colostomy is when part of the colon is removed, usually due to cancer. But the end of the colon that's remaining is then taken and run through an opening in the front of the abdomen. And there's a permanent opening there so that the excrement can be discharged. So the ostomy is very specific. You're going to have that permanent opening called a stoma as a result of the procedure. Now there's obviously incisions are going to be made. Obviously something might be removed in the process. But the defining characteristic of the procedure is that the patient is left with that stoma, that opening onto the surface of the body, and that is an ostomy. Okay, let's do some review with this final group of words. What would be the term for withdrawing fluid from a joint? That's arthrocentesis. arthrocentesis. Again, arthro means joint, centesis means to withdraw fluid from. So arthrocentesis would be withdrawing fluid from the joint. What would be the term for the surgical repair of a nerve? That would be neuroplasty. Neuroplasty. Neuro means nerve, plasty means surgical repair. Neuroplasty. What would be the term for suturing a muscle? That would be myography. Myorrhaphy. Myo means muscle. Raphy means to suture. So myography means to suture a muscle. What would be the term that means making an incision into the heart muscle? That would be cardiotomy. Cardiotomy. Cardio means heart. Otomy means incision into. So a cardiotomy is an incision into the heart. What would be the word part for creating an artificial opening between the colon and the abdomen? Well, that's a colostomy. We just talked about that example. Colostomy. Colostomy. What would be the term that means the surgical removal of a muscle? That would be a myectomy. Myectomy. Myo means muscle. Ectomy means surgical removal. So a myectomy would mean to remove a muscle. This ends this episode of the Medical Terminology Podcast.